Hello, BookTube. It's been a bit of a rough 24 hours here, and in addition to that, the day itself is dark and gloomy with intermittent squalls of snow and sleet, so there's no light at all. I'm going to postpone most of the stuff I wanted to do for BookTube today until in the hopes that light returns. But I thought, what better way to pick up a day than to read a little of the Bible. We started off on a little series of doing a psalm every Sunday, and I really enjoyed it, and a lot of you seem to really enjoy it. So I thought we would do that today. It doesn't have to be a long video. And we'll start, as always, with the King James Bible. I have the Norton Critical Edition here, but any King James Bible will do. We're going to talk today about Psalm number 3, a psalm of King David. So this is the King James Version that we'll just read. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there are which say of my soul, there is no help in him for God. Selah. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory and the lifter up of mine head. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. Selah. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, and for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for thou hast smitten all mine enemies upon the cheekbone, thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people. Selah. So that is Psalm number 3 in the King James Bible. Now let's move on to a couple of other translations, just so we get a good sense of it. We'll do the New English Bible. So this is an updated version of the King James. And here, this is Psalm 3. Lord, how my enemies have multiplied. Many rise up against me. Many there are who say of me, God will not bring him victory. But thou, Lord, art a shield to cover me. Thou art my glory, and thou dost raise my head high. I cry aloud to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep, and I wake again, for the Lord upholds me. I will not fear the nations in their myriads, who set upon me from all sides. Rise up, Lord, save me, O my God. Thou dost strike all my foes across the face, and breaketh the teeth of the wicked. Thine is the victory, O Lord, and may thy blessing rest upon thy people. Notice a couple of key changes there right away without even delving in. But let's move on. Let's go to the New Jerusalem Bible and see what they make of Psalm number 3. Yahweh. As he gets it yet again, another change. Yahweh, how countless are my enemies. How countless those who rise up against me. How countless those who say of me, no salvation for him from his God. But you, Yahweh, the shield at my right side, my glory, you hold my head high. I cry out to Yahweh. He answers from his holy mountain. As for me, if I lie down and sleep, I shall awake, for Yahweh sustains me. I have no fear of people in their thousands upon thousands, who range themselves against me wherever I turn. Arise, Yahweh, rescue me, my God. You strike all my foes across the face. You break the teeth of the wicked. In Yahweh is salvation. On your people, your blessing. And then lastly, we'll move on to Bible Gateway, which is usually the NIV, although they change it. They are liberal with changing it, with smoothing out the NIV, even with adding in modern worship words, worship phrases, which is an enormous undertaking. That is an enormous presumption to do. It shouldn't be something that you just expect when you go to BibleGateway.com, but it happens with them and a lot of other people. So let's see what they make of Psalm number 3. Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? How many are saying of me, God will not deliver him? But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear, though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people. And when we look at these translations, you can see some fundamental differences being worked in here. For instance, in the Bible Gateway edition, the NIV, that part about the Lord will strike my enemies on the cheekbone in the King James Bible. He will break the teeth of the wicked. Notice that break the teeth of the wicked is sustained almost exactly throughout because it's such a great line. It's so incredibly vivid that you don't want to leave it out or change it. But you notice that in this version, arise, Lord, deliver me, my God, strike all my enemies on the jaw, break the teeth of the wicked. That is a direct injunction to God. The narrator of the poem, let's say King David, is urging God to do that. Whereas in the other versions that we read, the narrator is telling the reader or the listener that God does that. It's very interesting, and I think it points at a weird little back and forth dichotomy that you can see in this psalm, which is that half the time the narrator, King David, is talking about all the ways that God has protected him from his enemies and continues to protect him from his enemies, who are numberless, who are the vast hordes of people that want ill to the speaker of the psalm. And the other half of the times mentioned in the psalm, God will do this. He will do this. He hasn't done it yet, maybe. I am besieged on all sides, but I trust you to do the right thing. But you haven't actually done the right thing yet. That's, in part just wording, but wording matters. These things have been worshipped for thousands of years. And one of the big differences, one of the details that I'm sure you noticed that none of the other editions preserved from the King James is that weird word Selah, S-E-L-A-H, which is a little bit strange and probably is a holdover from verbal chanting in the temple in Jerusalem or some temple. Probably it is a callback, a kind of verbal get your audience all on literally the same page. Probably it has nothing to do with the psalm at all, but rather with the liturgical use of the psalm, much like amen, the ritual kind of a period at the end of the sentence, amen, that you would find in, for instance, an American fundamentalist church, where it's often used as a way to get the audience all on the same mental wavelength. So a fundamentalist preacher will go on at great length, maybe shout something, they're very fond of shouting, and then pause and say, can I get an amen? Or can I get an amen in this church? And that is meant to draw everybody together and make them all respond in the same way. All right, I've gone off a little. I've certainly strayed from the text. But I want to make sure that you all know where I am and that we're all listening at the same rate in the same way. So I will say that that's probably where that word comes from. And if that is where that word comes from, then you can understand why all the other translations would leave it out, right? Because it's not part of the psalm, not in any real way. And they do. They just completely leave it out. The New English Bible elides it completely rather than have any kind of explanation. In fact, the New English Bible and the New Jerusalem Bible add a note explaining that there is a word missing here. And the only other thing that I want to mention about this, of course, this psalm has a wonderful capacity for contemporary interpretation. Your priest or your pastor or your rabbi will be very good at doing that. That elasticity, that applicability for contemporary interpretation is what makes the Bible so unending as a source of comfort in the 20th century, in the 19th century, in the 21st century, the largely godless 21st century. It's applicable in a lot of ways. This is a plaintive, complaining, please don't let me down, please don't desert me psalm, where someone who's beset on all sides by literal enemies. The enemies in this psalm are not metaphorical. They are not meth addiction or bankruptcy or anything like that. They are actual armed enemies. And the singer of the psalm is calling on God, thanking God for having been a bulwark against those enemies in the past, and calling on God to continue to be a bulwark against those enemies. In a very practical, physical way, this psalm echoes the early parts of the worship of Yahweh, where he is very much a God in the ancient Greek sense of the word, the ancient Norse sense of the word, where he's walking around. He's a guy. He's physical. He's in the world. He's not a metaphysical being at all, which is why when you want him to strike your enemies, it isn't that he will make them fearful or that he will make them feel hollow inside. It's that he'll break their teeth. This is very much a supplication to a bigger boss than you are. The sotto voce implication throughout the psalm is that the singer of the psalm isn't an ordinary person. You don't have 10,000 people who want ill of you, unless you have a YouTube channel. But usually not. Usually you don't have that. It's kings, warrior kings, that will have that. And here, that supplication is being made in the directest way possible. I will lay my head down, and when I wake up, I will find that you have sustained me against the thousands of enemies who mean ill to me and who I want you to attack. I want you to break their teeth. But although that is the very literal, very Bronze Age origin of this thing, it is infinitely applicable to contemporary usage, which is why the Psalms are such an endless source of comfort to so many believers. Because this psalm is on the interpreted end of things, on the 21st century end of things. It's about God being your staff and your rod against forces that are arrayed against you. Now, they don't have to be armed forces here. That the faithful go to this psalm as a comfort against what the feeling that sometimes happens. It's certainly been my feeling in the last 24 hours, that the whole world is arrayed against you. And you will, in that sense, that dichotomy that I mentioned, that sort of split screen view where this is calling on God, including in the Bible Gateway edition, literally calling on God, urging God directly to smite your enemies, which in 21st century parlance do not need to be the Amalekites. They can be anything that's arrayed against you. Not only that, but also thanking God for having done that in the past. That dichotomy runs throughout the psalm and allows the faithful, the beleaguered, people who have been feeling sick for 24 hours or who just can't catch a break in paperwork or at work or whatever. It allows them to go to a psalm like this and hear their concerns being addressed directly. Now, that's a feat of liturgy. That's not literal. If you dig into the psalm, you realize that it is a call for respite, a respite poem by a warlord to the one force he knows that's greater than his own, against his enemies, to hurt them physically. But it doesn't matter. It lends itself so wonderfully to modern interpretation that you can go to it for comfort. So that is Psalm 3, a very early psalm. Not that it really matters, but I think we'll go for next Sunday. We'll go into double digits and see what we can find there. But I'm going to wrap this up for now. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.